Welcome to What's My Tagline, a show where we put the microphone in front of the people who are typically behind the scenes, those responsible for marketing, sales, social media, PR, and event management. Well, hello, and welcome to What's My Tagline. I'm your host, Carol Flagg. Thanks for spending your time with us today. On this episode, I'll be chatting with Rachel Schreiber, a fractional marketing executive and co-host of The Spark, Avaneer Health's terrific podcast featuring discussions around innovations shaping the industry. I had the pleasure of meeting Rachel at the Sway Health event in Atlanta early this year, and we've been trying to figure out how to get her on the show ever since, and I'm so glad we made that happen for the month of November. Rachel, welcome to What's My Tagline.
Hi, thank you, Carol.
Yeah, it's good to hear your voice. And like I said, we got to meet in person in May, and hopefully I'll see you next year in San Diego at the Sway event.
That was
Uh,
a great event.
oh, it was really terrific. It was really terrific. This episode's not about promoting the Sway Health event, but for those of you who are interested, you should check it out. So, Rachel, we're going to be talking about your background, your journey in marketing and the healthcare industry, and most importantly, about your terrific podcast that you co-host, The Spark. But before we begin all of that, uh, my first question of all my guests is if you had to describe yourself as a tagline, what would it be?
Well, I was thinking about that, and there were several key phrases that really guide my career and my perspective on marketing. But I think the tagline would be that together we can accomplish anything, as my tagline, because I've been part of many teams, and it's amazing to see how, as individuals, we can accomplish a lot and we can contribute, but together, we can accomplish even more. And there's like nobody in marketing, really nobody in any company, but especially in the marketing team, there's nobody that can just do all of the marketing either alone or could make the same impact working solo. And so I just think that people bring together their gifts and contribute and work together, and what we can accomplish together is really amazing.
Yeah, it's a sum of all the parts, right?
It really is.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's a great tagline, and I think it's interesting too in the sense of like obviously there's a lot of conversation around the impact of generative AI on marketing and
Yep.
communications, and that is like the new piece of that pie, right? That is being, I think, uh, creating a bigger impact on marketing these days, as as we all navigate the AI roads. It was a big conversation its way. But when you were talking about that, I was thinking that has become the slice of a pie that's become, I think, critical to marketing teams and efforts. And to your point that we all have our gifts, and we all can't be good or great at everything. But if you get a team of people that are good or great at one thing and put that together, including generative AI, you've got something that's pretty impactful.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think when encounter innovation and Gen AI, it'll be interesting to see how that changes everything. But I was a kid in the 80s when the microwave came out. And I remember people talking about the oven and stove going away and people trying to cook turkeys in it. And I ate lots of microwaved eggs. I don't know about you, a microwaved bacon. Um,
Swanson's.
right. And then it was just gonna, like, we were no longer gonna need the stove. And we know that's not true anymore. But every kitchen has a microwave and it's an
Mhm.
important tool. And maybe we do underutilize it. We could probably cook more in it, but than like popcorn or leftovers.
I
But
was thinking about popcorn.
yeah, but I think AI might be like that, and that it's an essential tool in every marketing team, and we'll figure out how to best use it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and maybe it will take over all of our jobs, but I do think it'll become it's at least an important tool.
I agree. I agree. So let's just spend a few minutes hearing your story, filling our audience in on your career journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we work together we work better together, kind of links to my journey because I'm a fractional marketing leader now. And I kind of like fell into that, or it was like my opportunity to, work, be self-employed for the first time after really wanting to be independent and self-employed. And I think what that whole model delivers is a team model to maybe a solo team or to a solo team or to a solo marketer. So there's a lot of startups, there's young companies where, they can afford to pay a manager or a director of marketing, and then they give them a budget and say, good luck. And it's one person. And
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
so many people that are stuck in that function. And they're like, oh, if I could only hire, a team of three, I could accomplish so much more. Well, you can't with the budget that you have. And so that's where I think fractional marketing, consulting, I've successfully built teams of, 4 or 5 contractors as a solo marketing leader. And I really have seen the impact of being able to use a fraction of somebody's skill set and then together have a full marketing team for, a small portion of the of the cost. And so like that's kind of the end of my career is not, or where I am today is serving people and building full teams with contractors. But I think, that's where I've ended. And but my journey started out as, and this is my natural gift, is a teacher. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, so like when I went to kindergarten, I came home, I taught my sister how to read, kind of
Yeah.
kept her up to speed. And it's kind of like part of who I am is a teacher, coach. And that's also been one of my most satisfying aspects of my career is there are many marketers that are taking care of their family. They're earning a great living, taking care of their family because of the things that I've taught them and the boosts I've been able to give them in their careers. And but it's what's interesting is using your gifts like not in the classroom. So I got a degree in education. I was going to be a social studies teacher. It was really challenging in the late 90s with the boomers still in, and I lived in a small community. And a lot of times the social studies teacher was also the football coach or the
Yeah, right.
basketball coach. And so it took me, it was going to take a couple of years to find a full-time job. And in the meantime, I looked outside of education and I found this really great sales support role. And that just kind of started my career in marketing of working in sales support. And I just kind of, that's the zigzag career that, many of us have where it's like, well, I start somewhere and it takes me over here. So that's where I started. And I got into healthcare in 2004, working for an EAP.
Oh,
Yeah. And it was really exciting. It was, traveling downtown Chicago, and it was a great experience and exposure to the benefits side of things and employer benefits. So, and I've moved into healthcare analytics, and it's been a really great journey of being able to make an impact, just like I would in teaching, but being able to make an impact in the lives of people without um, needing to be a clinician.
yeah, yeah. So the role of, a fractional marketing executive and contracting out a team, is that and I'm just curious, is that a growing trend
It
in,
really is.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really is.
yeah.
I started in 2019, and it was more of a, I worked with a friend who had been a consultant for almost a decade, and she kind of showed me the model, and I it really caught my imagination of um, being able to lead marketing and help a smaller company really rise to the top and get the marketing resources they need without having to invest in a leader at all. Like that, you can just, go to a fractional executive and say, let's work on marketing together. And then that executive not only brings the insight into like this is where you should be focusing on, but then also the resources of like design and writing and digital marketing.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't know if it, just coming at, I mean, obviously we're a couple years, out of COVID. I mean, I consider ourselves to be a couple years out of COVID, even though will be with us forever, basically. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
Right.
I'm hearing this idea and concept more and more,
Yes.
and I think especially, you know, health IT, uh, the last year or two, just, they're, I don't, not cutbacks and layoffs per se, but the money's not being spent like it used to be, basically.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, everybody, all these hospitals and physicians, they have a certified EHR, they've gone through the incentive program, they've added, maybe cybersecurity and AI might be the only two areas that continue to see, I think, a lot of like turnover and as far as software, right?
Right.
But things have, from a digital standpoint, things have definitely settled down. So I can see why this role of fractional marketing executive for a startup or a small company, or even maybe a mid-sized company makes sense.
It does. Yeah. It can
Yeah,
really make an impact.
yeah, yeah. So the Spark. So you're the co-host of the Spark, which, as I said, my opening is a Avaneer Health podcast that you co-host, I believe, with the CEO, right? That's his title.
Yes. Yes.
And the two of you are terrific. So tell us about the podcast, the genesis of it, what you focus on, the kind of guests you bring to the table, and what you've really kind of creative, the spark, basically, obviously that brings a lot of, imagery basically to the mind. So give us the backdrop on that.
Well, we started talking about this a little more than a year ago, and it was, how do we um, for Avaneer Health it's a decentralized digital platform that can help solve interoperability by connecting payers, providers, and vendors directly. And it's a really innovative way to approach data fluidity and data exchange. And the challenge is creating awareness and generating demand and really getting the word out as well as being able to connect what we're doing to what other innovative organizations are doing and talking to them about how they're innovating in healthcare. And so that's what we really wanted to accentuate was not only get the word out about ourselves but also hear from other innovators in the industry because there's a lot going on right now in innovation. um, you know, I think around 2020, 21, 22, there was a lot of talk about digital health and digital transformation. And, but I think I see that the conversations are expanding to encompass other topics. And it felt like it was really important to talk to people who are doing really interesting things in healthcare. And so we decided to launch a podcast to talk to, different leaders in healthcare. And I was talking to Saul Marquez, who leads Outcomes
Yes,
Rocket.
Outcome Rocket. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really great.
Yes.
And he really, he's had a podcast, a really successful one for a long time, and
Yes.
really respect the conversations he's having with innovators as well. And he was really encouraging us to do that. And um, so we said, okay, well, this will be one of the things that we do in 2024. And, I was talking about different people to be guests or to be co-hosts in our organizations. And, Stuart Hansen is one of his strengths is that he's very likable and easy to talk to. And so that was, definitely somebody that we would want to have lead the podcast. But it was like, well, we need a co-host because that'll make it more interesting.
It does
And
make it more interesting. I agree.
right. And Saul said, well, what about you? And I was like, no, because in marketing, a lot of times we're behind the scenes. We're making things happen. I've done a lot of speaker training with it, the executives and um, putting myself out there was not like my first thought. And so it was really kind of solid to encourage that. And then, as I was thinking about my goals for 2025 as well, from a personal and a professional perspective, this phrase of like, what about, why not me? Um, and I thought, well, that kind of jives with I'll also be I'll be the co-host, and I'll also explore the meaning of the phrase, why not me, in my life as well, to be able to like put myself forward. So it just
Yeah.
kind of all came together. And my first few, I thought, okay, I've got to get a little more comfortable. If I don't make it, after the third one, if it's not still smooth enough, I'm fired.
You're
So
going to fire yourself.
yeah, fire myself. Because I've found in marketing that it takes 3 tries, or it takes 3 executions of something to be really great at it. So we launched a newsletter, and it took like 3 episodes, 3 issues, and then okay, we worked the process out. And I've just found anytime you do something, it's the magic of 3, and after the third time, it goes a lot smoother. So we found that also with our podcast that we did, um, the more that we more episodes that we recorded and released, the smoother it got, the more comfortable, the better flow. Um, and then we were also able to, show the industry that it was a serious podcast that was also interesting. And we've got some really great guests from leaders and from all over.
Yeah, yeah. So a plug for Saul and his Outcome Rockets podcast, and he works. I believe he works with you on the show, correct?
Yes, he does.
Yep,
His team
yep,
produces it. It's great.
yep. That's wonderful too. And you can tell that you can hear. I should say you can hear the production value um, by having that sort of team behind putting these podcast episodes out there. I mean, we've got our radio shows. All our radio shows go to our podcast channel, and then we syndicate shows like full transparency, we syndicate the Spark on our network. And back in the day, when podcasts, this is like, you know, 2016, 17, 18 was really the start of the rise of podcasts. It's just um, the Apple version that came out over that period with the podcast embedded on the iPhone was a bellwether event for podcasts. But anyway, but back then everybody was putting like, oh, we'll just do a webinar and we'll just repurpose it as a podcast. I mean, it was just like, people were just putting it out there, which is great because, everybody, gained experience and people were listening, and then COVID hit and lots of people were listening to podcasts. It was sort of a kind of a great time in in the space, but as time goes on and companies became more sophisticated in their production value, the listeners became a little pickier as to what they were listening to. People
Yep.
went back to work after COVID, so they have less time. So now they've become more selective in what they're listening to. And so I think production and the value of the conversations and the personalities of the hosts have never mattered more.
Right. Yes, I would agree. And I think more people are discovering, like I used to be a radio listener and now I'm a podcast listener. So
Yeah,
it's like just changing a different habit, or it's replacing one medium with another.
yeah,
You have
yeah.
more control over podcast listening.
Yeah, it's an episodic experience versus like this radio show. It's a listening. You're listening at that particular moment to what's
Right.
airing on that particular radio station versus that episodic experience that you get with a podcast and all that. I mean, I'm an audio person anyway. I mean, I was an early adopter of Audible. All my books I listen to on Audible. It's just like
It's really great.
so I'm a I'm an audio file. Is that the correct way to say that? I think. I don't know.
Close, something like that.
So it is November. Obviously, we're winding down 2024, and I'd love to spend the last few minutes that we have together, the last 5 or 6 minutes that we have, talking about the future, about 2025,
Great.
the outlook for the podcast, the outlook for you. I'm so intrigued with Why Not Me? I think I might, might adopt that. I might steal that from you and
You should.
apply it to my life. Why not me? And see how that goes. So yeah. So again, I don't know where 2024 went, but it is almost gone. And so let's talk about 2025. What is it going to look like for you?
Well, we're excited for 2025 and the opportunities ahead. Like we're gaining traction on the podcast, and I know Avaneer Health is gaining some traction on growth. So I think that'll open up some doors to speak to additional hospital leaders and likely some payer leaders to share some insights into how we recently just spoke to, a smaller Blue Cross Blue Shield that's doing some really innovative work in Southern California, and that was really exciting to hear. And I see that more and more hospital systems are opening innovation centers. They're investing in startups, and they're not only taking they're not only using these new tech innovations within their hospitals, which I think is really the right way to do it. If you're going to innovate in healthcare, it needs to be early user input, and with hospital systems investing in those startups, I think that's just the right way to do it. And we have a lot of opportunity to speak to additional leaders about that. And then, also, you know, health plans are doing the same and maybe have a longer history of that. So, being able to speak with them as well. That's what I see for 2025 is to be able to connect with more innovators, and then also following up with a few that we already spoke to, what kind of new things are happening in their space and in their organizations.
Yeah. Are a lot of those startup technologies that you're talking about, are they mostly AI? Are they all AI? Are they a little AI?
Yeah. There's a lot of, ambient listening and also like the clinical use of
Yeah,
AI is really
yeah,
high, that's for sure.
for
But
sure.
there's also some really neat clinical things that are happening that health systems are investing in, as well as that patient experience. I think more and more health systems are realizing that they're in the customer service business,
Yes, yeah,
and um, they need to make sure that that whole patient experience and the flow around that, the workflows around that need to work better.
yeah. And why not me? What's that going to look like for you in 2025?
I have lots of dreams for travel. That is always number one on my list.
Oh, lovely. Why not me? Why can't I go around a cruise around the world?
Or why not just me? I
Why not
don't.
just me? Oh, that's even better. I love to travel too. What's on the top of your bucket list?
Oh, I really want to go scuba diving again. I went this summer and it was just so lovely and so peaceful. And, I
Mm.
finally brought my own equipment. I had, a shirt on so that I didn't feel the back. I remember snorkeling for the first time and I was like, I think my back is going to be a red beet.
Finally,
That's amazing.
let me put a shirt on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's amazing when you like are properly equipped, how much more peaceful and relaxing it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And there's
So
so many places just like in our hemisphere or around, the North American continent that there's spots that where there's beauty just waiting to be discovered.
yeah, is that like typically like off the like is the Florida Keys area that
Yeah,
you're
I
or
haven't been there. Yeah.
yeah,
So
or
there's all kinds of places where it's like, oh, I don't have to travel far. It would be really nice to, but
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if
yeah.
you have, but
Well, I don't scuba dive. That is not on my bucket list. Traveling is on my bucket list. I'm actually going back to the Mediterranean in
Oh, nice.
in September next year. So I'm excited about that. Spain and
Wonderful.
France and Italy. So all good there. And so I will hopefully see you too. Speaking of travel, at what we're going to plug again, the Sway Health Marketing
Yes.
Conference in San Diego this year. I know I think it's like the in April, like
Yes.
17th, 18th, somewhere in there. So I'll look forward to that. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. More to talk about as it relates to marketing, obviously, and the
Yes.
going trends and whatnot. So we will look forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'll
Yeah,
take advantage of the early tickets.
yeah, for
So,
sure. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today.
all right, thank you so much. It's great to
Yeah,
speak with you.
yeah. You can learn more about Rachel and the Spark at avaneerhealth.com and be sure to connect with her on LinkedIn. You can learn more about this show on the program page on healthcanowradio.com and be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Until next time, I want to know, what's your tagline?